On Friday afternoon, former President Bill Clinton walked out of the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center in New York, got into a car, and left without saying a word to the cameras waiting outside. He posted a video on X reiterating his opening statement. He did not take questions. And then, almost immediately, competing press conferences began, each side declaring that Friday's deposition had proven exactly what they already believed before it started. That is where we are with the Congressional Epstein investigation. And yet, if you set aside the noise from both press conferences and look at only what can be independently verified, what actually happened this week is genuinely significant, and several details deserve your full, undivided attention. Let's start with what is confirmed. On Friday, February 27th, 2026, Bill Clinton became the first former American president to be compelled to testify before Congress since 1983. He sat for more than 6 hours in a closed-door deposition before the House Oversight Committee. His opening statement, which he posted publicly on X and which PBS, CBS, NBC, and CNN have all published in full, began with this: "I had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. No matter how many photos you show me, I have two things that at the end of the day matter more than your interpretation of those 20-year-old photos. I know what I saw, and more importantly, what I didn't see. I know what I did, and more importantly, what I didn't do. I saw nothing, and I did nothing wrong." He said he would often answer, "I do not recall," because the events in question occurred, in his words, all a long time ago. He defended his wife. "You made Hillary come in. She had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing. She has no memory of even meeting him. She neither traveled with him nor visited any of his properties." That is from his formal, sworn opening statement. According to two sources with knowledge of the testimony speaking to CNN, Clinton was shown numerous photographs of himself with women and asked each time whether he had had sexual relations with them. Each time he said no. He was specifically shown a Justice Department released photograph of him in a jacuzzi with a woman whose face is redacted. He told lawmakers he did not know who the woman was and had not had sexual relations with her. He acknowledged having known and traveled with Epstein. In his opening statement, he wrote, "As someone who grew up in a home with domestic abuse, not only would I not have flown on his plane if I had any inkling of what he was doing, I would have turned him in myself and led the call for justice for his crimes." Ghislaine Maxwell, in a recorded interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche that was published as part of the Epstein Files release, said it was she, not Epstein, who had the personal friendship with Clinton, and that she was the one who suggested and organized his trips on Epstein's aircraft. That is Maxwell's account from the Epstein Files themselves. Neither Bill Clinton nor Hillary Clinton has been accused of criminal wrongdoing. No Epstein survivor or associate has ever made a public allegation of wrongdoing or inappropriate behavior against either of them in connection with Epstein, as Al Jazeera noted in its pre-deposition summary of the investigation. Chairman James Comer said afterward that Clinton answered every question and described him as charming, adding, with a touch of genuine admiration, "He's got Southern people skills." Republican Representative Nancy Mace said Clinton answered questions even when his attorneys told him to shut up. Republican Representative Anna Paulina Luna said he was being very cooperative. Comer confirmed the committee has two more depositions already scheduled, Epstein's accountant and Epstein's lawyer. He said the committee plans to release the video and transcript of both Clinton depositions as quickly as possible. He did not name additional witnesses, saying it had been so hard to get the Clintons in that he didn't want to announce future names prematurely. Democrats at the press conference outside the building had their own message. Representative Robert Garcia of California, the ranking Democrat on the committee, repeated his demand that the committee now call President Trump to testify. "We are now asking and demanding that President Trump officially come in and testify in front of the Oversight Committee," Garcia said. The committee's Republican chairman has said he sees no need to call the sitting president. Democrats say that position is inconsistent with the stated purpose of the investigation. Here is why Democrats are making that argument. And this is where we need to look carefully at what is in the documents, not what either side claims about them, but what they actually say. In December 2025, as part of the rolling release of Epstein files mandated by the Epstein Files Transparency Act, legislation that passed Congress near unanimously, the Justice Department released a January 7th, 2020 email from an assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. The email, since published in full by NBC News, Time Magazine, Axios, CNN, Al Jazeera, and CBC, among others, states the following. Federal prosecutors had just received flight records showing that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported, or that we were aware, including during the period we would expect to charge in a Maxwell case. The email states that Trump was listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996, including at least 4 flights on which Maxwell was also present. On one of those flights, the only 3 passengers were Trump, Epstein, and an unnamed 20-year-old woman whose identity was redacted. On 2 other flights, the email notes, the female passengers were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. That is what the document says. It is a 2020 internal federal prosecutor email released by the Justice Department in December 2025, now confirmed and published by every major news outlet. The Justice Department, in a separate statement accompanying the document release, said some materials in the files include untrue and sensationalist claims against Trump that were submitted to the FBI before the 2020 election, and specifically called some of those claims unfounded and false. The department was referring to other documents in the release, including an unverified allegation of rape. Trump has not been accused of criminal wrongdoing in connection with Epstein. The White House has consistently denied any wrongdoing and referred questions to the Justice Department's own statement. What the flight log email establishes as a matter of confirmed record is a documented travel relationship in the 1990s. 8 flights, some with Maxwell present, one with only Trump, Epstein, and a redacted 20-year-old on board. That is in the federal record. It is the reason Democrats say the committee's refusal to call Trump while spending 2 days deposing the Clintons represents, in their characterization, a selective application of congressional oversight. It is also the reason Republicans say the depositions are designed to look for evidence of wrongdoing against the Clintons, a charge Democrats dispute, noting neither Clinton has ever been accused of anything in connection with Epstein by any survivor or witness. Now let's talk about Don Huffin's and Zorro Ranch, because this story broke 2 weeks ago in the Santa Fe New Mexican and has since been confirmed by the Texas Tribune, Fox 4 Dallas, KSAT San Antonio, The Hill, CNN, and The Daily Beast. And it is worth knowing because it is not a rumor. It is confirmed by public property records, tax filings, and the candidate himself. Don Huffines is a 67-year-old former Texas state senator, a self-described MAGA Trump Republican, and the current frontrunner in the Republican primary for Texas comptroller, with the March 3rd primary just days away. He has endorsements from Senator Ted Cruz and conservative figures across the state. And in 2023, through a limited liability company created just 1 month before the purchase, his family bought Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch in New Mexico at a public auction. The purchase amount was not disclosed. The ownership was kept private through the anonymous LLC structure until the Santa Fe New Mexican identified the Huffines family through public property and tax records, a revelation first reported on February 13th, 2026. The property, which includes a 26,700 square foot hilltop mansion, a private airstrip, hangar, and helipad, was listed for sale in 2021 at $27.5 million. It was later listed at $18 million. Huffines' LLC subsequently argued in a tax proceeding that the property's notoriety justified a lower tax valuation. A Santa Fe County assessor agreed, valuing it at $13.4 million. Multiple Epstein survivors have said they were abused at the ranch during their youth. Virginia Giuffre, among the most prominent survivors to speak publicly about Epstein's crimes, was photographed at the property. In the weeks before the ownership was revealed, New Mexico officials had called for federal and state investigations after a document surfaced containing allegations that 2 girls may have been killed and buried at the ranch or near it. New Mexico lawmakers unanimously approved legislation authorizing a formal probe into those allegations. Huffines' campaign spokesperson said his family had never visited the property before the auction listing and would offer full and complete cooperation to law enforcement, adding that no agency has requested access. Huffines said he plans to convert the property into a Christian retreat. He told OAN's Matt Gaetz, "This was obviously a dark place, and we wanted to put light in a dark place." Even Republican voters in Texas have raised questions. Multiple Republican county precinct chairs and former party officials quoted in the Center Square's reporting called the purchase deeply troubling, disgusting, and disheartening, and inconsistent with a candidate running on a platform of government transparency and accountability. Wayne Hamilton, former executive director of the Republican Party of Texas, said, It shows incredibly bad judgment to be associated with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in any form or fashion. The Epstein investigation is not over. The depositions of the former president and Secretary of State are done. 2 more are already scheduled. The documents are still being released. The ranch in New Mexico is now the subject of a state legislative probe. The question of who else in Washington may be called to sit in a chair and answer questions under oath, including a sitting president, remains formally open. Stay with us. With